I'm here to welcome you to another edition of Bates Botanical Bootcamp. We are coming to you live today to talk about grow lights. So just a little bit of background. Grow lights are going to be a great way to add like supplemental lighting into your home if you find yourself short on window space. It's also really helpful as you're getting ready to start seedlings. I know that time's coming up pretty quick. And that's, a great way to get your little veggies and herbs off to a great start in the springtime. Now, you might be wondering, like, what makes a light a grow light? So a grow light is going to be a lamp that emits the right wavelengths that plants like to use, or like full spectrum lighting too has all the different wavelengths found in natural sunlight. So, as you get ready to start, you want to make sure that you're looking for something full spectrum. There are several different light bulb options for grow lights. Kind of an old school method is going to be incandescent lights. You don't really see those too much anymore. They use a lot of power, and they're put off a lot of heat too. So you have to be careful, like how far away you're putting them from your plants because they can burn. And it's just a lot of electricity. Another option is going to be fluorescent lights. You can find more energy efficient fluorescents, like the T5s, little skinny fluorescent tubes. Those do use a fair amount of power, but quite a bit less than like larger fluorescent bulbs or, the incandescent bulbs that we just talked about. And they do put off some heat, but not too much. The nice thing, they are pretty inexpensive initially. But you do have to replace those light bulbs at regular intervals, so the cost does kind of go up over time. And then, of course, the modern is LED bulbs. The price on those has come down quite a bit in the past few years, so there's a lot of affordable options and a lot of different styles. Honestly, almost too many styles sometimes. It can be a little overwhelming knowing where to start and what to look for. So the way, I think about it is just, what are you trying to grow? Like, are you trying to add, supplemental lighting for some of your houseplants? Are you starting seeds or growing herbs, vegetables? Or are you, growing highlight sun-loving plants like citrus or cactus? So that's going to be your base, is what are you trying to do? So a good rule of thumb is, for like wattage, and this is going to be in terms of the LED lamps, is about 11 to 18 watts per square foot for herbs and vegetables, leafy greens, but not fruiting or flowering plants. So plants that fruit and flower are going to need a little bit more, about 32 watts of square foot. And that is going to be the actual wattage of the LED. Like, you do want to check that label carefully. Because sometimes they'll have it labeled in like equivalent watts of compared to like a fluorescent bulb or something like that. So you want to make sure you're looking at the actual wattage. Now, as far as how to work those lights in, there's a few different options. Probably the simplest and one of the most cost-effective ways is going to be just grow light bulbs. This is like one little example, like a little Miracle Grow LED. Fits a standard light bulb socket. And there's, you can find like high intensity discharge LED lights like at your hardware store. And that's just going to be a light bulb. It's actually what we're using in here for our webinar to brighten things up. And a lot of those are going to be full spectrum too. So that would work well for, small plants. Like if you're just doing little areas, or, you have plants that need a little bit of a boost. So this is going to be that little bulb in a socket. So you can see it definitely brightens things up. It's about 12 watts. So it would cover, about 1 square foot of space, going off those guidelines from before. And that's going to be for like a lower light plant, or, if you're doing like herbs or something inside, you can just do, one little spotlight, brighten up a small space. Another option there's a lot of these guys out on the market now, and that's these little LED, the gooseneck ones. This version has kind of, it's like a LED light bulb with like a bunch of little LEDs in there. So this one's a little higher output, about 45 watts between the two. This is actually the one I use at home for a lot of my carnivorous plants, like my Venus flytraps and things like that, just to keep them nice and compact during the winter. So you can see, I mean, this is like a nice, gentle, kind of sun-like spectrum in the LED light. But yeah, great for small spaces. The height's adjustable, so, you know, you can move it closer and farther away, like as your plants grow. But yeah, great option for house plants or like little veggies. You could use it for seeds too. And then, you know, kind of on the upper end, if you're doing like, you know, if you need like a larger area illuminated, or you're growing things that need a lot of light, like cactus or citrus, anything that you need to like fruit and flowers. So even if you wanted to say like grow a tomato plant all the way to, you know, the fruiting stage indoors, you would need something a little bit more powerful. Again, about 32 watts per square foot is a good rule of thumb. And that is going to be, there's like LED panels like this guy right here. There are two different options. So this first one I'm going to show you actually will look purple. So this is just red and blue LEDs. So out of all the visible light, plants actually use red and blue light the most. The blue light is going to be more important for the vegetative growth phase, growing leaves and roots. So this lamp actually has two switches on the back. This is the vegetative setting, and then it has another more red one is the bloom setting. And so that's like a little bit stronger, and you can, you know, switch between, you know, as your plant grows, you can switch between the growth stages. That's going to be great for something like citrus and things like that. And you can also find it if you're not a big fan of the purple, which can be a little bit intense. You can do, this is another one that we don't have set up, but this is just like a sun-like LED. It's about 150 watts, so not quite as strong as this one, but still gives you like a nice area of coverage, and it still has the reds and blues in with the other wavelengths, so it just looks like, you know, a cool white or medium white LED light. So that, I mean, that's a little nicer for indoors, like if it's in your house, you're not, you know, glowing purple. And I do find it's a little bit easier to tell what is going on with your plants, you know, in terms of like leaf color, like if they're burning or stretching out. It's just a little bit easier to health check them under like a regular, more white looking LED. Now for placement, always check the instructions that come with it. Some of them, especially the stronger ones, you have to mount a lot higher away from your plants. It's good to put them on, you know, like a pulley system or like a chain where you can adjust the height as your plants get taller, especially for like seedlings. You usually start out pretty close and then you need to move it up as those plants grow. So keep it adjustable. And yeah, and always read those instructions, because I have burned plants even under grow lights before, and that's not fun. And then as far as how long to leave them on, I've had some people say that they leave them on all the time. Honestly, your plants do need about an 8-hour break in the middle of the night. They have a lot of metabolic processes that they do during that time, so they need about 8 hours of sleep every evening. So you can do your grow lights about 12 to 16 hours a day. I like to set a timer so that it's nice and consistent. And a lot of models do have timers built in, but yeah, if you're keeping it simple, just get, you know, a nice little dial timer and your light will turn on and off all on its own. And yeah, that is like my brief spiel on grow lights. And you know, there's no like, you know, right or wrong choice when it comes to them. There's a lot of brands, a lot of makers. I would just say, you know, pay attention to like the wattages, and just get one that'll fit what you're looking for. You don't have to get anything like super crazy or high tech. Like it can be just as simple as like a light bulb and a fixture from the hardware store. You don't have to go too wild with it. Did we want to open it up for questions?
Yeah, we have a couple of questions already.
All right.
Can you put grow light bulbs into a regular light fixture?
With the LED ones, I would say you definitely can. If it's, maybe like some of the bigger, like compact fluorescent bulbs or, something incandescent, you want to be careful because those do put out a lot more heat. So you might need to find something with like a ceramic socket instead of just a plastic one. But yeah, as long as they have like a regular bulb base, like that standard base, you can put them in just a regular light fixture. I like the ones that are a little more reflective on the inside, so it helps focus that light downward and it's not, shining out all across the room.
Yeah, I feel like I've had experience with UV bulbs that if you don't actually block some of that light from shooting towards you, my eyes do weird things.
Yeah.
So also the light that we have that's in the fixture above Vanessa is just a regular clamp light, and it works just fine. So moving on, we have a question. Martin asked lumens and Kelvin ratings. Does that matter at all? Is it more?
Yeah. It kind of does. So the Kelvin rating is more of like a color temperature. So like a lower number is going to have more red and yellow in it. So that would be, like your warm light or warm white light bulbs. And a higher Kelvin rating is more blue. So that does matter a lot more if you're using fluorescent lights. Some LEDs may be more on the blue side too, and that'll be for like vegetative growth only. But you can find one that does, full spectrum. Even if it was cooler white, that would still be fine for growing leafy greens, microgreens, seed starting, since you don't need that extra red to make them bloom. The lumens are kind of related to the wattage too. I use watts just because most lamps are going to be labeled according to the wattage. It's just a little bit easier. But I believe, let me see, I wrote it down somewhere. So I think, let's see. So about 2,500 lumens a square foot is going to be sufficient for vegetative growth. And then about 10,000 lumens per square foot is for fruit and flower. So that is, 2,500 lumens or 11 to 18 watts. And then 10,000 lumens or 32 watts per square foot. And
just for some of the folks who tuned in later, can you go over those wattage amounts again, like for starting seeds versus vegetative growth versus fruit production?
You got it. For wattage, this is in regards to an LED lamp, not fluorescent, and this is the actual wattage of the LED, not the equivalent wattage like some of them will be labeled. About 11 to 18 watts is going to be good for the vegetative growth, seed starting. That's when plants are just growing leaves. And then about 32 watts per square foot for plants that will fruit and flower. And that's just like a rough guideline, but that's about, from a few sources I've compared, that's about the range to look for.
All right. Heidi on Facebook asks, can you rotate plants that need grow lights back and forth between being under the lights to low light?
You can. Usually, most plants, do everything kind of slowly. So adjusting to changes, especially if you're rotating, pretty frequently, that can stress them out. I would say, if you have a lot of plants that you're trying to cover, you might look into getting a more powerful grow light and then just mounting it higher so it covers a larger area. Or just pick your plants. I do grow lights for my cactus and succulents in the winter. Just because, it helps keep them a little more compact, or something like citrus, plants with high light needs. Most plants, a lot of the house plants, this little prayer plant or the peperomias are fine in just ambient room lighting or window light and don't necessarily need that extra boost.
Awesome. And Heidi also chimes in, I've got a smart plug to help with my timing. Works great and super cheap. I also have one of those, Heidi. Works for me too. All right. Do you lower LED grow lights over seedlings like you do fluorescent lights?
I would say probably depends on the actual fixture. Because LEDs don't put out as much heat, you usually can keep them a little bit closer to your plants. But for some of the higher wattage ones, you may need to move it further away. So I would just refer to like the instructions that come with it just to double check. Like I have some, like these ones over my carnivorous plants are about 6 inches away. Whereas, you know, for some of the, like the LEDs for seed starting, like this fixture or like this big one over here that I use, I usually start about like 12 to 16 inches away. And then sometimes move it up as those plants grow. If they start getting a little bit of a suntan, I have to raise the light a little bit more.
Okay. Let's see. Pam asks, do you like mixing the cool lights with the regular UV light?
I mean, I would say that I do. I prefer like just kind of like a natural, more neutral kind of look. The purple inside my house was like a bit bright and a bit distracting. So I mean, a lot of the LED ones, like this little guy, it has like a mix of like individual diodes. Like some will be a warmer white, some will be a cooler white, but usually around like, I think I read about 6,500 Kelvin or like 5,000 to 8,000 Kelvin, like color temperature, which is like right in the middle. A lot of LED bulbs already come in that, or like for the fluorescents, you can mix and alternate to get a little bit more even coverage.
And for seedlings, just to, you know, keep them nice and strong and not leggy, what's the recommended height, you would think?
So again, really does depend on the actual fixture and how strong it is. Usually, like most LEDs are going to be, say, like between like 6 and 18 inches away. Some of them might be more than that, especially the really strong ones. And then I'll kind of adjust too. Like I'll just keep an eye on the plants. Like I usually kind of err on the side of it being maybe a little further away. And you know, if they're starting to get leggy, I move it closer. And I'll also, it's a good thing to do too before you move them out. I'll put like a fan on them for a couple days just so they get that movement. And when the stems bend gently like that, it actually helps strengthen them too. It triggers the plant to make a stronger stem.
That's a great tip. Andrew asks, and you might have gone over this a little bit, I grow microgreens and leave the lights on always after germination. Do you recommend an 8-hour lights out period?
For microgreens, honestly, like you could probably just do a 24-hour cycle because that's not a plant, you know, you're harvesting it really young. You're not letting it grow and mature into a plant. So yeah, I would think like, 24 hours would be fine for that because most of those are just like, you know, a week or two until you harvest.
Cool. Okay. Elizabeth asks, so we can use regular LED bulbs with those wattage requirements and don't need to buy specific grow lights?
In some cases, yes. Always read that packaging carefully, but yeah, a lot of like the hardware store ones, like they will be an appropriate spectrum for plants, even though they may not specifically be labeled as grow lights. But yeah, and there's also the high intensity discharge LEDs are going to be quite a bit brighter. You may eventually hit a wall, like if you're trying to illuminate like a larger space, like you've got a lot of seed trays going, or you have a lot of plants that need supplemental light. It's probably going to be better to get like a panel type LED just because you can cover a much larger area.
And Lee asks, for greatest versatility, would you recommend LED instead of fluorescent? And full spectrum instead of just blue.
Yeah.
I just bought a blue T5 light yesterday, wondering if I should return it.
I mean, honestly, like, I still do like the fluorescents. The only downside is you do, like, especially if you're running them like year round and not just for seed starting, you want to replace those fluorescent bulbs every like 10 to 15,000 hours. So like if you're running them 12 hours a day, that's about, 3 months of running them 12 hours a day. And that's not a very long time. Like the reason for that is like the spectrum coming out of the fluorescent tube does change over time. And it can, start putting out like different wavelengths that are maybe less than optimal for your plants. Long term, like if you're going to be using them a lot, you might do LED, because an LED, I mean, it lasts years. Eventually, like you may need to replace that fixture, but it shouldn't be more than like every few years. Or you can opt for something like this where, it's an LED light bulb that kind of screws in. And this is going to be replaceable, like if any of them go out, but you can keep the same plug and fixture.
Great. Let's see. Pam asks, who makes the light in front of you that looks like a foam block? I assume that is the white one.
Oh, this one?
Yes. And it's turned on its side. Usually it's going to be hanging just like the black one you see to her left. We just turned it up so you can we can show you that it's just a grid of LEDs. You got that?
Yes.
Okay.
Ooh, this one's heavy.
Yes, it is. That's why we didn't rig it up. It's very heavy.
Oh, here we go. This one is branded Roladro, Roleadro. I don't really know much about it. I honestly ended up with this one because it was on a really good sale.
Yeah, my grow light, it's actually kind of, probably like 2/3 the size of that. The brand is Y Grow, like the letter Y, GROW. That's a full spectrum one as well. I got it on, Amazon. I'm sure a lot of people will be sourcing these online because for me, at least, it's kind of hard to find them in town, like the big LED panels.
Yeah. And honestly, it's kind of worth noting too. It's like this one, even though it's quite a bit larger than this black one, this guy's only 150 watts. But this black one that's like, that looks purple when you have it on is 600. So that does like, I guess, yeah, if you go off the wattage for like fruiting and flowering plants, that's going to be about 18 square feet. So like a 6x3 area, which is like quite a bit. Whereas this one, would cover like a smaller square footage or, maybe a little bit more space if you're just doing greens.
Yeah, it's very important to note that size does not matter.
It does not.
Yeah. There's a lot of complicating factors. Let's see. Marty asks if Bates Nursery offers a selection of grow lights here. Do we have anything like that at all?
Unfortunately not. But yeah, we do. I mean, yeah, we don't really carry any grow lights or grow fixtures. I think some of the local hardware stores do, at least like a small selection. But usually, I mean, online's going to be the best bet for a selection.
We have Lee here in the chat recommending Indoor Growers World in Goodlettsville. I think they just recently moved from Trinity Lane, if it's the same place I'm thinking about.
Oh, the hydroponic place?
Yeah.
Nice.
I think that's the same one. Yeah, that would definitely be a good resource. Unfortunately, All Seasons closed recently. They were a really good indoor hydroponics resource. You definitely find the fluorescent bulbs. I think I've found at hardware stores. Which, speaking of, somebody asked, which is the best fluorescent, T5 or T8?
I like T5. You can typically get a higher light output. It'll be labeled like T5HO for high output. And those are still fairly easy to find. And because it's a smaller, slimmer bulb, it's going to be a lot more energy efficient too than a T8, which is fatter and not quite as bright.
Great, thanks for that. Yeah, so I mean, we might look at adopting grow lights in the future at Bates. Obviously, you know, if there's demand for it, we'll try and supply that need. But we do have just about everything else.
We do.
Yeah, including like terrariums, and I mean, we've got blankets. We got a lot of stuff for your outdoor garden, but we have some indoor decor as well. So that looks to be the end of the question.
Yeah.
Anybody else have some? We'll give you a second to chime in there. Now, Vanessa, what do you have under grow lights right now?
So right now, I have some of my carnivorous plants, like Sarracenia pitcher plants, which do like full sun. I do overwinter them indoors because I'm scared to leave them outside and let them go dormant. And then, yeah, some tropical sundews, little carnivores that are sticky. I've also got like all my cactus and succulents in for the winter under grow lights at the moment.
Oh, I missed a question from Bill too, relating to succulents and carnivorous plants. Is the recommended height the same for those?
I would say about the same. Like this one, this is what I keep over my carnivorous plants, and I've kind of adjusted it as, you know, I see them growing. So this one, again, it's about a 45 watt fixture total, like between the two bulbs, is about 6 to 8 inches away. And they seem to be enjoying that.
Awesome. Well, it seems like that's it for our questions. So I guess we can go ahead and wrap up the webinar today.
Yeah. Thanks so much for tuning in.